tends to be a good little way of just having a discourse, using the stages. This is going to be a recorded session, just so that everyone's kind of aware, because we've got a bunch of people that are still sleeping with the Australian population. And I know they like to participate in this. If you have never been in a stage before, the way this works is it's obviously an audio conversation. You can absolutely volunteer to come on up to participate in this stage. The way we're going to kind of work through it is there's a raise your hand icon at the bottom of the interface you're using. That will raise your hand, and I can move anyone up onto the stage to participate in this conversation. Nemo, welcome, buddy. And otherwise, the rest of you are all just in listen only. And when you come in, you'll up on the stage, you'll just join the conversation. If for some reason you can't speak because you're still waking up and your significant other is otherwise still passed out, we do have the Diablo Campfire text channel. I know Kitten's in there, along with anyone else. Feel free to just kind of drop a message in. I'll definitely voice it up into this conversation. And we'll just kind of share things out from here. So by all means, you guys can use that Diablo Campfire text chat in the events category. Like I said, this appears to be one of our best ones. Dread, thank you for coming. It's always good to hear what you guys have to say. I know, Nemo, you're probably listening in today. I know you said you were working.
I'm here.
There he is. I didn't know if you got volunteered to be thrown up on the stage.
I volunteered myself.
Voluntold, as it were. So
what's going on, man? What's up, everybody?
We've been doing real well. I know, obviously, here we are. First week of March is all wrapped up. I know for myself, it's cold and dreary out there, but we had really nice temps the other day. Did you get out and fly your drone?
I did get out and fly my drone. Actually, I went for a test flight. Well, I've been going for a few test flights of this new drone, and yesterday was a really good day. Not a lot of wind. But yeah, man, I went up, did a couple of flights. It was a lot of fun. Dreaming about Immortal while I was flying up there.
Maybe they can add flying mounts to the game in an upcoming patch.
Dude, that would be cool. I wouldn't mind putting an Immortal drone up there.
No, what's your prediction? That's a very common one. I know I was just in that back and forth with somebody a little while ago. And it's like, to me, the earliest window would be sometime in March. This was going back a couple months now. So we're kind of in that estimated season for me. I know Wadums was in earlier saying, April is his, best guess, which I kind of think might be true. I know, I keep going back to that tweet from Mikey Barra almost a month and a half ago now, that we'll be seeing a lot of information around Warcraft and Overwatch, and then Diablo will follow. And obviously Diablo can follow as actually 4 titles as far as I'm concerned. And we've seen a little bit already on Warcraft. I've heard rumors, but they fizzled out about if there's anything else. Overwatch 2 is the big rumor mill that people have. We'll see if that comes to fruition or not. And then whatever's contained in Diablo will follow.
Well, it's interesting because every time, even the last one, right, where Wyatt was talking about it, I know they reiterated the whole, it's gonna come out like we said it will, but still, the time, in my opinion, is ticking. And on top of that, there's that whole, they need to start listing it in the Apple Store if it's actually going to be out within months, right? There's a few rules when it comes to listing mobile games in Apple stores. So, like, at this point, they're very much close to that first half, in my opinion. Again, obviously don't know anything, but if you're just looking at date-wise, we're 3 months out, literally less than 3 months out at this point. So there's no news in the next month, my guess would be that they're not making the first half. But that
Well,
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I also look at it that, they may not have a release, but, if they do plans like a soft launch, that's a miss, but not a miss, depending on where you happen to live.
Yeah. And they. Oh, Jared, go ahead. Actually, I didn't even see you in here. What's up, man?
Yeah, I was like, should I go into the stage? Okay, I feel like I'm just gonna be dragged up here eventually at some point.
Yes, you will. Welcome. Welcome. The water is warm. Come on in.
All right. So to maybe answer both your questions, and even though people may not like to hear that it may be extended a little bit more than normal, but to give like educated, grounded, well within the realm of possibility. All right. So if you're on your computer, you pull up your calendar. It's the first full week of March. What other Diablo is a big franchise now. It has Diablo 3, Diablo 2 Resurrected. It has D2 itself, and then it has Immortal. So we still don't. And the thing is, as of right now, D2R is in its 2.4 patch cycle, pretty close to the end, and then it's going to have its first ladder a week or two after that with the patch coming out. So that's key information number one. Key information number two, we are well overdue for the next season PTR for season 26 for Diablo 3. We don't know when that's going to happen, but it like I said, we're well overdue. So we have to. But with that, those two pieces of key information, if they're not going to overlap season start over season start, or a season start from D2R or Diablo 3 over Diablo Immortal's launch, and let each game have 2 to 3 weeks to breathe with their respective season launch or Diablo Immortal's release, we can kind of put together the puzzle pieces with an educated guess, at least from my perspective. So to kind of make this long and short, say the D3...
Sorry. I got to cut you in on here. Two pieces. One, as of the top of the hour, if no one's in Twitter, D2R Season 3 PTR just started. And our buddy, Adam Fletcher, Pez Radar, just posted some big information on Warcraft. The 15th is an expansion reveal, which we've heard of. And then April 19th is another expansion reveal. And May, question mark for the day, the mobile game is revealed. So going into the, how are they going to sequence all of that? I mean, literally, this just post Adam just shared in the last 43 seconds.
So
went in since the top of the hour.
Okay, so 15th is the expansion reveal. April 19th is the World of Warcraft reveal. Expansion reveal. Okay, but there was nothing as far as Diablo in there, right?
No. And for anyone that's not currently on Twitter, Rowan just threw this into the Campfire text chat.
It said, I'm looking at it. It said Warcraft mobile game reveal.
Okay. So the way this could work out, say for instance, D3 PTR was announced this week. Let's just say it was. D3 PTR cycles are usually 6 to 7 weeks. Usually the first week, as of late, has been the first week is the announcement of the PTR, with the following week being the PTR start. And then it's usually 4 weeks of PTR and then at least 1 week minimum to get the PTR out. Now, the crazy thing is what's going to happen first? Is it going to be the D2R ladder, or is it going to be the D3 ladder? I'm willing to bet that the D2 ladder is going to launch within the PTR cycle, or it can launch afterwards. So basically, for people who don't have a calendar, if we take the longest way possible, so if we do 7 weeks plus 2 for at least 2 weeks to give D3 its season, and then 2 weeks for D2 and its season, that's 9 weeks. So that basically brings us, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... 7. That brings us to the first week of April. So that's just to give D3, D2 both their PTR cycles and 2 weeks to 3 weeks each of their season launches. So our poor content creators who love D2 and D3 aren't working 100 hours on content for both games. And as well as people who love D2R and Diablo 3 don't have to essentially pick which game they're going to do. Are they going to do season 26 or are they going to do D2R's first new season? And that's pretty bad. So where does that leave us? That leaves us at basically beginning of May. And with the information we just got, with May being the mobile game reveal, it actually kind of lines up kind of cool that they could theoretically do D2 Diablo Immortal's release date along with now the mobile game reveal for World of Warcraft. Basically make it a mobile May for Blizzard, and then have the game come out maybe 2 or 3 weeks later towards the end of May, because something else that has to be considered when you're coming up with a release date, if they're holding to the first half year window, is that since Diablo Immortal is a free-to-play game, they're going to want to give it a week or two to essentially marinate in the open so we can get some good, essentially, financials, like money incoming, so when they do their quarter 2 investor call, they have some good financials to report on how good or bad the game is so far. They're not going to release this on like the last Tuesday of the last month of the quarter, because it's not going to have good financials to report back for that financial review. So really, it's the absolute dead, in my view, the absolute dead drop last day it can release is like the first half of June. So I have a feeling this game is going to be released somewhere in the window between anywhere mid-May to late June. Just so Diablo 2R, D2R, D3 can get all their stuff handled before then. And it can have its time to shine where it's not being overlapped by other Diablo games. And also so other content creators can come in and live stream it and show it off. Because, free advertising. I'm sorry I took so much time. I apologize.
No, this is great. A couple of follow-ups to you though. So you're solid about all that. I actually agree with the whole PTI release of all that. That's gonna be wild. My concern though is that if you're saying like, okay, it's gonna release in May, between May and June, I believe June way more than May, because again, I'm going to go and follow up on this, so I don't want to just speak and say things without knowing them, but I'm pretty sure, like 90-something% sure, that if you're going to release a game on the Apple Store, you need to give them a 3-month headwind, and they're gonna need to start doing pre-registrations. So far, you can't still. I mean, I'll go check on my iPad again, but last time I checked, you still weren't able to pre-register it. If that's the case, that means that we're still more than 3 months out. And I'll double check this rule as well before I actually speak.
Not necessarily. I've read that policy. I mean, granted, I'm not an Apple developer. I don't develop apps, but at least based on the black and white text that I've read, you can release a game, develop a game, and pitch it up to Apple and say, when it's ready, just put it out there. But if best practice is always do a pre-registry campaign, especially if it's an established IP like Diablo obviously is. They're going to want to do some sort of registration window, and the registration campaigns, according to Apple, can be anywhere from 2 days to 180 days before the release. So if I'm Blizzard, I can say let's release this game July 1st, and that's my wait window. I know Apple will have it approved by then because Blizzard's big enough. They probably have good representation. They've obviously been testing it in the iOS store. So hitting that release date of July 1st, just line in the sand, is very, very realistic. And they can say to Apple, once it's approved, we're going to do a pre-registry that starts here. And from what I've read, again, in their policies, that pre-registry campaign is anywhere from 2 to 180 days. And, if you haven't already snuck over there, at least as of my checking the mobile browser, because I'm a green bubble, through and through. I'm Android all the way. I don't hop onto the App Store, but going through their web portal, it's not listed yet, but it's one of those. Once it's there, it's got 2 days minimum. At the fastest, that'll be released. And even then, you never know. It might. On iOS, it might not have a pre-registry window. I think it would be, for lack of a better term, it might just be crazy, or it might be asinine to do a Android only, soft launch while the iOS gets pending. I mean,
No
I
way.
don't think that they would dog food themselves like that.
That'd be a riot. There will be a riot. Well, the thing is, I do hear the 2 days a min, and then there is a 180-day max. Just overall, but from my past experience, there's a few apps that I've worked with some of my other companies that I work for in my real life that we tried to push, and these are internal apps, but still had to be listed on the Apple Store. And generally speaking, again, from my past experience, it's 3 months. So, and again, maybe it could be less, maybe it could be more, but at the same time, like you said, right, you want to drive up the interaction. So I'd say you'd want to start the pre-registration. Definitely not 2 days. Okay, maybe a month or something like that. But I would definitely start it earlier than later. So that is a prerequisite, though, in my opinion. Though, since it's not there, then I don't know. That's a sign to me. What?
Hey,
Maybe
Nemo,
Joe,
Red.
like you said. What's up, Joe? How's it going, man?
Hey, good. How you guys doing?
Fabulous.
Awesome. I have a question though too, because they didn't have iOS in beta, correct?
Yeah, this specific one only because they were testing out the store, and within the store and the functions of the payment, Apple has a very interesting thing there. They wouldn't be able to actually charge people. So that's why via Android was the only way to be able to issue credits and etc. That's why.
Okay. 'Cause I was just thinking more for bugs too, because they still have to do the final levels and everything else, and
Agreed.
Android's going to be ahead of iOS now for even bug testing.
That's a good point, actually. Somebody brought that up before, and I totally forgot about it. You're right. Like, I wonder how's that going to work, right? I wonder if the bug testing is going to be. But maybe there's less. There's less iPhones too, right? Than there is Android. So maybe that's another
Well,
thing.
Maybe.
It's the good old we'll handle it when we get there.
Oh, good Lord.
Test in production is always best practice. I don't know what you guys are concerned about. Always test in production. Well, I mean, it's one of those. What I would be curious about, on Joel's point about the cash shop. I mean, they couldn't have the general populace test it. I really wouldn't doubt that they're doing a lot of the internal testing, still doing through test flight, in my mind. And those people that have access are still being able to test it. They just can't test the cash shop, and let the Android people spend their money. I guess is the way to look at it. But to the point of, the end games, the, extra characters that were redesigned and whatnot. That was tested through Android. That's been tested, hopefully internally through iOS. But I know on the other side, since the closed beta wrapped up, we've only seen one update to the Google Play Store where the date actually was changed, which doesn't really mean anything, but all of us are kind of hopeful means they at least did some client iteration for internal testing. And that was on February 15th, and we're coming on 3 weeks post that. We still haven't seen another update. So I would kind of wonder, like, from the client side, on either iOS or Android, how much bug testing is really necessary. And, we don't see it, but, up until this point in time, we didn't even know confidently that they're doing any iOS testing until, the alphas came out. And it'd be interesting to see something measurable or whatnot. But at least at that point in time, we haven't seen, anything go on about that,
I'm wondering though too, Red, if they might tread lightly because of D2R. And when they released D2R, there were so many bugs that a lot of people asked for their money back.
Well, luckily they don't have to worry about that because it's a free-to-play game.
That's true, I guess.
No, I mean, if there's one thing I can attest to playing the technical alpha, the closed alpha, and the closed beta, except for the closed alpha, which you could almost set your clock by, like every 30 minutes or 45 minutes, the client would just crash, which they fixed wholeheartedly for closed beta. Like closed beta ran infinitely more smoother than closed alpha. I don't think I ever ran into an issue during any point of the main quest line. Knock on wood. Like, didn't get stuck. It's not like I had to go for like an item I had to go get wasn't there, and I had to wait for an update or a hotfix or something. So I think that when it comes to worries of that kind of level, I don't think we have to, especially because we've tested so much of the game and tested it so repeatedly so often that we did our job. The people who got invited and played for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours and making sure that like things that just needed to work. And I think what they're doing right now is getting, as was mentioned, the last area done, the last dungeons done, doing their internal play testing, making sure that things are triggering when they're supposed to, items are coming when they're supposed to, bosses are not like, phasing in and out of existence like the Heliquary with lag and stuff like that. So I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. And if it is, well, the game is going to be live and they're going to be they're going to be really quick on getting those hotfixes deployed. So I personally, I wouldn't have too much of a concern on that front.
Yeah,
I also think
some of the
stuff
right, go ahead,
some of the stuff that we're seeing too, as far as even just changes during the beta, in my experience in the closed alpha, like there wasn't a lot of, we'll say, like hardware dependency bugs that that I really saw. I mean, the app crash was always one, that happened a lot. But a lot of the changes that we're I've been seeing recently will end up being, back-end things. It's database configurations, they're not, coming up with whole new mechanics. Hopefully, those types of things are all, tested out and can be tested on one platform. So it's one of those that, like, obviously, because there's plenty of people even on this call, right now, that it's like, oh, I was in the, alpha and I really wanted to be in the beta, but I only have an iOS device, like we wanted you on there too, and I know when I was on, it was a, great experience, and, everyone else that we've talked to, like, they definitely solidly enjoyed it. I don't want to, Nemo, I'll let you go in a second, but I just want to kind of bring up a point that Powerful Shammy shared out about the Google Play. He grabbed a screenshot. She grabbed a screenshot and posted in the chat. And it does say, you're right, the pre-registration is 90 days on the Google Play Store. Reading the fine print, it is suggested that it's 90 days. And the enforcement force that will, kick you off if you've been bad is Google. So it's one of those, while the pre-registry campaigns should be relatively short, in practice, it could be, significantly longer. And also, I would assume that depending on who the developer is, if they're a big company, then obviously you'd want to kind of play with that a little bit as well. So I just wanted to write that in and close it up. So go ahead, Nemo. Sorry to derail you.
Oh, no worries. I think there's going to be a whole bunch of media stuff as well, right? You're going to want to make sure that you promote the game, run ads everywhere, etc. There's going to be, I'm expecting some of the marketing push as well. Normally, especially with this type of game, you're going to get some of that. So if there hasn't been any of that, it means there isn't a lead way, in my opinion, yet. And I'm tuned into all things Diablo Immortal. Literally, if somebody sneezes and they say Diablo Immortal, I know about it so far. So I have not seen one commercial, anything, except for some of the stuff over there on the other side of the world. And as far as bugs goes, I ran into major bugs every time I started playing. But my bugs were mostly concerned with logging into the game and being able to actually run it and etc. As far as I agree with Dread, what he's saying, there's like almost no bugs when it comes to the storyline, etc. Like a few little things, but most of the stuff is pretty solid. They're ready with that. I have another question though. If unless anybody else wants to speak about this. Oh, shut up for a second.
And then don't forget, folks in the audience, you can always, drop in any sort of text, question into the Diablo Campfire channel that we have in the events category. So you don't have to necessarily come up on stage. If you drop something in, I definitely have my eyes on it and throw your question in as well.
Yeah, throw your questions. I'll love to answer some of them.
Thanks for answering it, guys. How do I get out of the campfire? Like back down?
I got you. Yeah. Someone did it for you. You could just select yourself, and you would have definitely thrown yourself down.
My question is in regards to starting class. Actually, what are you starting with?
At least for me, I really want to go back to my monk. I was definitely, I enjoyed the demon hunter, and now that we have confirmation that they want to encourage alts, because there's a lot of people that were just slamming that you only could really play with one character. I definitely want to start back with the monk again, and then probably do that demon hunter as a hot second.
Nice. Okay, Dread, I'm putting you on the spot here.
Oh, see, this is like the easiest thing in the world. It's going to be a demon hunter.
You've abandoned the Wizzy?
Well, I don't feel like playing a class that has 3 channel skills. If that's what you mean.
Yeah. I hear you. Actually,
I mean, I'll tell you this much. Like,
all right.
I still like the wizard, but the thing is, there's only one build I ever liked playing, and it was basically when you turn disintegrate into the fire version with like the chaos side beams that come out. It was the most glorious build in the world because you just see like 20,000 damage numbers peaking, especially when you're doing like a challenge rift, and you just gather up like 50 mobs and you start going at it. But for me, it's like the wizard is inherently a higher skill class, not because it's inherently harder than other classes, but because you use all your cooldowns and then you do nothing for like 8 to 10 seconds while you're waiting for all the cooldowns to come off. The demon hunter is a little bit more flexible in its damage output, and if you do everything right, you get so rewarded. Like, you can just like pop off a boss with everything. You could do like 3 charges, a multi-shot, you can do sentries, you can do like a vengeance, rain of vengeance, all on a boss, and you obliterate it with the damage output. And even though I don't know, me personally, I don't know where I would put demon hunters. Some of my fellow Maxwell people put it higher than maybe I put it, but that's because maybe I don't want to like have to live up to expectations, especially running around with those guys. But it's pretty high up there, and I feel, you know what? I've played it for hundreds of hours. Let me just stick with it. It's a class I know. And it's one of the 2 classes in Diablo 3 I play a lot, so that's what I'm going to stick with.
I hear that. I disagree with one thing, though. Like, you pop off all your skills, and while you're waiting for cooldowns, you just run for your life. You don't stand there. That's what I did anyway. I would pop everything off and then just run. Because you're right. You'll have like, I think it was like 8 to 10 seconds where you just like paperweight. You don't do anything.
You're basically playing a wizard, especially high level, is basically good old fashioned like mage kiting. You pop everything off, and then you're basically just kiting mobs around in a circle, and you're just timing your cooldowns, which is a way of playing, but like it's an old way of playing.
Agreed.
I know that's the way. Agreed. I remember doing D2 with the assassin was always what I ended up doing whenever I played. It's back 20 years ago. I'd be run it, drop what I could, and then just run out and then throw down a trap behind me, and then throw out another trap. So that was always kind of fun. And that's actually the one class I think they should add, or really kind of incorporate a little bit better, the assassin type. But the monk kind of gets there.
There is flexibility in the wizard and some stuff, though. I mean, maybe not super high end play, and I think PvP as well, though, right? Like once you go PvP, there's specific. I didn't play too much PvP. But there's specific builds I think that the wizards are OP at, right? Like being able to just make people like stuck people or whatever. I know you could be pretty effective high level with the wizard in PvP, but when I played, I just got smoked every time. Like I may be able to go 1-on-1 with somebody, but after that, you're dead. It's over. Like
Yeah,
forget it.
basically, the build that Lexi came up with, basically it's like you just like teleport on somebody and they're just stun locked. You're just sitting there looking at the wizard, laughing at you as the spells are going off and like basically chunking away your health. But you're right. Like as soon as you do that, you kill the person, and then you gotta GGFO because you gotta get your cooldowns up. You have to make sure you're not getting bombarded by a barbarian or a crusader that's just driving by.
Yeah.
But I guess that's part of the balance, per se.
Agreed.
Jen, we'll have to apologize. We got a bunch of fat heads up here. We're all real bad at just talking off and whatnot. And I see you got your line unmuted. What do you have to kind of join in and add in? I know. Actually, I'll apologize to everyone. I kind of stacked the deck here. I invited Jen over. She actually, if you want to talk about your program a little bit, by all means. But she's also a Diablo content creator that I've kind of met up with via social media. And I was like, hey, I know you definitely have a good program with the Shattered Soulstones. And I was like, maybe you'd want to at least kind of see what the mobile side of it is kind of talking about. So, I reached out to Jen. I was like, well, why don't you kind of join in for a campfire? So by all means, go ahead.
Okay, so going from the question of what class you're going to play in Diablo Immortal, I got into, I think, the one beta that allowed iOS in, and it was when they were testing the Crusader. So that's what I played, and it was pretty fun. It took me a little while to get used to the interface and all that, because I do play mobile games, but hadn't really done, that was the first Diablo mobile game, so I was kind of trying to figure out like which buttons to push and how to move around and stuff like that. And I definitely went through the storyline as much as I could, but it's a little like, for me, it's a little weird to be playing Diablo on a tablet, right now. I'm sure I'd get used to it if when the iOS version comes out, I'd probably be able to do that. But I remember trying to record it, and I'm on a Mac, obviously. I do have an Xbox S, so I could play Diablo D2 Resurrected. But when I was trying to make content from the beta that allowed iOS in, I had to hook up my tablet to my computer. There's a software thing I use to record that, but then it prevented me from hearing any of the sounds. So it's just I'm hoping there's a fix or something easier that will work better for that by the time things come out, because I don't know how to record it. Yes.
If you ever need any help, just let me know. Nice to meet you, by the way. I know the Shadow Soulstone. What you need?
But inconsistently, I've been playing a barbarian for a very long time in there, and then this season I switched to a monk, so maybe I'll want to do that. I don't know. It depends on when it comes out, and I don't know. I guess what my mood is at the time in terms of characters. But yeah, so there's that. I think I was going to say something else, and I can't remember what it was. But I wanted to answer the question first, so I think I did.
Yeah, the Crusader is OP.
Yeah,
really nice build. But the barbarians are. That's honestly, I always mained the wizard because I fell in love with the wizard once I started playing back in the day. But to be honest with you, I've always been a barbarian since the beginning. Although my favorite in D3 is Witch Doctor.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I've played that a little. Yeah.
I mean, it's just some of my favorite builds. But because of that, once they came out with the Necro on this side, I started playing with the Necro, and it reminds me so much of the Witch Doctor that. So right now I'm kind of stuck, to be honest with you. I love the Wizard as I play with the Wizard, and it's an amazing class. But like we talked about, it's quite difficult and challenging in specific spots. I think the most OP class, to be honest with you, is the Barbarian. It's the easiest. It's also I feel it's probably the strongest in the game right now, and it's definitely the most overpowered in PvP at the moment, anyway. I mean, they could probably nerf a couple of things in there, but it just is. It has the class skills, everything. It has all of the stuff that I like about it in my general play style. But when I started playing with the Necro and being able to summon things and just having fun, it's so much fun, so much fun. So I'm officially stuck, and I do not know. I love the wizard, but I'm thinking barbarian, but I'm also on the necromancer. So I might play 3 characters, all of them at once. I don't know. I need more hands.
You need more hands, yeah.
More hands.
I gotta say that was the one thing I liked about the lessons learned, blog post that we had a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that they definitely seem to allow us to be able to, use a couple different alts. So, if you wanted to do, a primary and run it and then switch over to a secondary for a week, or because your friend was wanting to join up or something, you definitely had that ability, and it wasn't like, in the experiences that I saw in the beta where, you were not incentivized to run multiples, and I want to see kind of how that implementation runs. Are you able to share resources or some function of resources, smoothly, and then obviously what that feedback looks like.
Yeah, that's a weird topic, because like everyone's kind of like taking that to be. I mean, I don't want to like dash people's hopes, but like when I read, like, because I was focused within the very narrow confines of legendary gems, like almost taking like an inverted viewpoint of like legendary gems were an issue because they weren't shareable, when a lot of us know that legendary gems are a problem because of ORDR, and then once you get past that, which I constantly forget about, is the percentage base stats that they give, especially the higher end ones, which give quite a bit when they are max rank. But disregarding that, discussion, which is, shop free to play versus, free to play, disregarding that argument for now, pushing off to the side. It's weird because if they're thinking about, letting legendary gems go from one character to another, or doing some kind of like Diablo 3 Kanai's Cube deal where the gem isn't really an item anymore, but it exists in some kind of inventory, and you're just selecting that gem from like essentially like a display case or something for your character, however they're going to do it. That does kind of inherently bring up questions of like materials and stuff, from your main character to your side characters. But the issue with that is, well, they're jumping to Paragon level, which seems like a total tangent topic, but it's related to the overall discussion point of they're going to take away the penalty from salvaged items and from the materials you get from salvaging items and items you pick up. But they're going to increase, yet again, it seems, the amount of materials you need to get, your upgrade ranks 17, 18, 19, and 20, it seems. Not 100% confirmed it's just those last 4, but that's what it seems like. But if they're going to do that, but they're going to allow sharing of materials, do you kind of see where I'm going at? It's like, depending on how you play, you could farm up a bunch of alts to get the easy materials, once a day, or the easy rare crests once a day, and then shovel all that to your main character, which would actually be bypassing a lot of these inherent natural limiters or developer placed inhibitors. And you can have some people who really spiral and really get really far ahead power-wise than other people. So while we go back to the discussion point at hand, which is, account, stuff being shared between characters, I think it's a noble thing they're trying to do, but a lot of what they're doing with the game and how they're trying to like kind of artificially keep players at around the same level, it's going to be a hard dance for them to try to do, because they've kind of stipulated their own rules and now they're kind of undoing them. And depending on how they do it, there could be some really big exploits in there come release. And so I don't envy them, but I don't think we're gonna get big forms of like scrap and enchanted dust and all these other materials. I don't think we're going to go that far. Legendary gems is what they call that, so I think that's what we should be focused on for now, because anything else is probably just getting our hopes up.
I agree. I actually don't. I don't think they're gonna. In fact, I'm pretty sure I could bet on it. It's gonna be just legendary gems. A lot of us have complained about it. I've actually made multiple videos about it, so might be because I've been really complaining for a while.
You go, man.
yeah. Like, sorry, but I mean, honestly, it was one of the biggest pain points here, right? Like, and the reason I targeted specifically legendary gems versus like the dust and whatever, like you said, Dredd, right? They're very much focused on the exploits. They don't want someone to farm a bunch of accounts and just grind off for days, or grow 6 hands, like I was saying, and play 6 accounts at once. So they're trying to figure out a way to kind of stop that. But at the same time, what I pointed out in some of my videos was like, hey, you're charging for some things, and when you're charging for something, it's not really mine, right? So if I'm playing with my wizard and I pay thousands and thousands of dollars for these gems, I'm not going to be playing with another character when you come out with one, because I can't transfer my gems and they cost money. So that sort of makes sense. So in general, kind of that's what they were trying to avoid, because a lot of people complain about that. I do not think that anything else besides the gems would be coming. And I bet you some sort of like a token or something, right? Because in the characters, someone can exploit that all day long, right? So I bet you it's going to be a one-time deal or something like that. It won't be like you could just do it all the time whenever you want. So just keep that in mind too.
Yeah, like putting a because when they just to give more specifics on what you just said, Scrappy, because within like 5 seconds of them saying that and thinking of feedback, I thought of like, oh, okay, so you make a main, and then you make 5 other characters up until the point in the main storyline that they can do Elder Rifts, and the game gives a rare crest to you free every day. So what you do is there are 5 alts, you do the 1 rare crest, and if any of them get lucky with a legendary gem, if you were able to freely transfer a legendary gem, you're able to freely transfer gem power, which is the next best thing, and you basically just make it a daily routine, and then all gem power gets funneled from your 5 alts to your main, and your main can then rapidly rank up their main gems, and then you're ahead of everybody else. And that's just doing essentially the free-to-play version of that, let alone, converting the gems that you'd get through the battle pass or the empowered battle pass, just straight up converting those on your alt characters and then sending them over. So that's why when people are like, "Oh, this is great. Why aren't they doing something so simple?" There's a lot of devils in the details that if you're not looking for them, someone else will, and then you're wondering, "Oh, they're exploiting." Like, no, it's part of the system. It's clever use of mechanics.
I know on the other side, Roman's kind of asking the similar vein question in the text chat, asking, do we like how they're going to make the sets work like legendary items in the sense that you can extract the power of the sets, not necessarily the ORDR, but the added bonuses, and then put it into another object. Kind of like they did with the legendary, and then even said beyond that, asking the question, what if that was to be shared across characters? And I know I at least kind of retorted a little bit that it's like, you could definitely use the essence, but again, going back to like you just said as I was typing it in, the that funneling can obviously be a little bit of an exploitation too. If I'm adding extra powers to a lower level character, or trying to funnel all these things to be merged together into a higher level character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like when it comes to the set item question, it doesn't appear that they came to any kind of consensus or compromise on that, where basically the Essence vendor would also do sets. It doesn't appear that they've come to that conclusion. And technically, the situation that whoever played beta, think about how charms were and like, getting a good charm was in closed alpha, and how much worse it got in closed beta, because with the necromancer coming out, another 14 skills got added to the pool. So it became, from a statistics standpoint, harder to get your class skill. The same thing is going to happen with sets, because now there's going to be another 1 or 2 or 3 pieces per dungeon that are going to be in the loot pool when you go to do your dungeons. So it's going to be harder come release with all these new sets to get your particular set that you're going for. So I feel they really need to do something, but I think they can do something a little bit more clever, and something that would involve us. Like, for instance, one thing they could do is you have to collect the entire set that you want first before you could actually essence transfer it. So basically, you have to collect each piece, break it down into an essence, put it in the essence vendor, and then when you unlock the entire set in the essence vendor, you can then freely essence transfer any set piece from that point forward. Or you can do something a little bit similarly, where any set item, when you break it down, instead of giving you a glowing shard, gives you the set item equivalent, but it's of that particular set. So basically, Shabazz. So basically, you would break down a Shabazz piece, you would get a Shabazz set piece essence, and then you could use those essences to convert other items, other set pieces into a Shabazz item. You can do it with either one of those ways. And the reason why that's different than the essence transfer is because it still keeps in the mantra of, you still have to work to go to the dungeon, get the set item piece itself. But then the game's giving you the compromise of, well, if you got the belt but you really needed the boots, okay, we'll give you a pass. Break down the belt, get the essence, transform your boots from a different set into the correct set. It's a compromise, but it still makes it so you still have to run the dungeon, still have to get the set piece. It's not breaking or short-circuiting the loot cycle, which is something that happened way too much in Diablo 3 and causes something really weird. It causes burnout in D3 within like a week of a season opener, but it's burnout not because of people overplaying, but because people get to incredibly high power levels so quickly that there's nothing left to do. And they just burn out because then they're just doing the same thing for weeks and weeks on end. So that's 2 different ways that they could handle it, but still maintaining the loot cycle within Diablo Immortal.
So I'm trying to understand. Oh, go ahead. I thought you were done, Dread.
No, that's it.
Okay. Are we certain that we're going to have alts in Diablo Immortal, or is this speculation? I don't understand which is right.
You can have alts. I mean, you have the 6 character slots. You can do alts.
Okay, see, because I've only played in the one, I think it was either an alpha or something that allowed iOS in. So some of this I have no way of accessing until I ask questions about it to know. But yeah, okay. So you could switch around characters during when it gets released, right? You're not stuck with one.
Yeah, you can have up to 6 characters so far anyway.
It's just the with the way the more, even though we're on the older side of things, like we grew, like what we grew up with and how we played video games versus how the more modern generation, like the last decade and a half, has been kind of focused more everything has to be efficient, everything has to be min-maxed.
Mm-hmm.
So with that mentality, having alts in Immortal is not really practical. So that's why there may have been some confusion, but you can definitely roll all 6 characters. It's just a matter of, are you willing to pay the price on your main of not being as far ahead as everybody else if they're just focusing on one character.
That makes sense.
Or,
Yeah.
or similarly, if 3 months down the line, they add a new character that, you've been, we'll say the witch doctor. You really want the witch doctor. Right now, it's not in there. But, in 3 months, maybe they add it in. Or I know there's the data mine, so certain possibility of, the Blood Knight. Maybe that's what you want to play. So does that mean for the first 3 months, you don't put any time in because there's zero transfer from one character to another? I know that's the other side that they wanted to at least kind of address, because that was the way that I read the original blog post, that for some people there was almost no incentive to run two characters at the same time, because whoever was behind didn't get a lot of the benefits of like the shared battle pass. There were a couple objects in there that only went to one of your characters, which I know I picked up as a thing that a lot of people really didn't like. And I know that I tried to even do that when I was running a second character for a couple weeks, just to get some feel of what the necromancer was like. Even I was like, oh well, that kind of stinks that I can only get this legendary crest once in the battle pass, on that primary account. I could have not picked it up in the primary and got it in the secondary, but you had to be, cognizant of that fact. If you were running two characters at the same time, certainly you could troubleshoot that a couple different ways as a user. Like I said, you don't take it in the primary, so your secondary gets it. Or, it'd be nice if even they said like, hey, you'll get this legendary crest for, the first person. And then if you run alternates, you'll get this other one that's not as good, but at least it's still a legendary crest, or a legendary gem rather. To me, it would be another way of doing it. But I also know that not everyone will, chronically run alts unless you're doing it to, mule gear, which obviously, in its current implementation, there is no way to mule gear. Even selling it through the marketplace is not something you could really count on.
Yeah, and actually, to that point, and Nemo, I just thought about this. Even though legendary gems were the main discussion point for, like, sharing between characters on your account, I just thought about this. And it's potentially worse when you think about like a new character coming out 3 months after release or 6 months after release, and you think about the time invested in doing this activity. Gear ranks are going to be an issue. Because if you can imagine, like, if you're like 2 months into release and you're you finally hit all 16s, and all of a sudden, like, the Blood Knight comes out, and it's like the best thing since sliced bread, and you're like, I want to play that class. So you can roll the class, get it to max level, transfer your legendary gems, but you're out 6 pieces of gear, all at rank 16, and that can't be transferred because there's no share stash for all your characters. So there's no way of like taking like your Demon Hunter's 6 primary gear pieces, putting it into your stash, then going on your Blood Knight in theory, taking those pieces and transferring the ranks from your Demon Hunter's pieces to your Blood Knight's pieces, and then your Blood Knight has 6 primary pieces at 16. There's nothing like that. And that could be potentially worse because when you're starting a new character with the battle pass and everything, you at least get gems, or you can get lucky with rare crests and get like a decent, if not a 5-star gem. The opportunity is always there, which is the big sticking point. But with upgrading ranks, there's no opportunity, and you can be out like a few hundred ORDR, and you're essentially putting yourself behind playing a new character. Because coming back to what you said before, I never would have thought of the debate with legendary gems and freely transferring them, or now upgrading ranks, as a inhibitor to buying a new class. Well, they say when a new class comes out, it's going to be free. It's not going to be a DLC or anything. So I put that out there. But even with it being free, if it's a really great class, you're still going to ask yourself, do I essentially want to like start over? Because you basically are. There's no way of like catching up unless they put something in there. But I didn't think about that until just now.
And it isn't free. I mean, it's free, but you're still invested so much money into the other class.
Yeah. It's the
you're
I don't know
paying.
if that would qualify as an opportunity cost. if that would be the right term. But yeah.
I think in general, I spoke about this a few times we had the talks, and I mentioned this because like this is inherently like a different type of game because generally speaking, Diablo promotes you running multiple classes and trying out different classes. But like we just mentioned here, this is why it's difficult, right? If I'm going to play and I'm trying to figure out what class I'm playing right now, this is why I'm having a hard time because I'm going to invest money into it. I'm going to invest time, like we're going to grind gear and get it at max level. And when a new class comes out, like a witch doctor, like that's gonna be the worst case scenario for me, man. Like being a content creator, I almost have to, play with different classes. But in general, as a player, as a Diablo player, I'm gonna start with like a barb or a wizard. I put all of this time into it, max her out, do all this stuff with her, get her, whatever, and then they come out with a witch doctor. And what do? You can't transfer anything, and it's not just your gear slots; it's at this point money too. So. I don't know, man. It's not going to promote me into playing even some of my favorite classes because that's just a big mountain you have to climb. So, all in all, it's just not, I don't know, not the best case scenario. I've mentioned this many, many, many times. So I don't know how you can fix that.
Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay.
Go.
I think with me, I have a very limited amount of time I can play any video game because I have disabilities, and one of my disabilities will at times make my hands not work very well. So it's a neurological disease. It's also an autoimmune disease. I have 2 autoimmune diseases, so I'm tired a lot. I don't have a lot of time to keep playing, and I'm never going to be able to like stream for 8 hours like a lot of people do. So if I just pick one class and stick with that, and even just put all of my Diablo 1 time and energy into that one class, I'm still going to be behind everybody. And I'm cool with that because I know this is where I'm limited to, but I can see that like other people with disabilities might be in the same boat as me where we can only do a certain amount, so we're only going to play one class and that's it. Kind of thing. And I was looking at the news that came out with Diablo Immortal, the closed beta learnings thing, and it's got a thing in there about controller support, which is a lot more comfortable for me than playing on the keyboard. So and there's not a lot of info there. It just says that they're hoping to get the beta introduced a handful of compatible controller devices, but it doesn't say which ones.
Well, the most popular. So I can tell you that, like, if you, I don't know what kind of controllers you find comfortable, but like the Xbox controller, PlayStation controller, Razer Kishi, all of the higher end controllers mostly will. I mean, they don't have a list yet because they just haven't tested them all out yet. But I'll tell you, like, you shouldn't worry. Most of the good high end controllers will be supported. They basically they want to drive to the most they can. They're very like picky when it comes to like making sure that everything is perfect. That's why they haven't said it. But there will be a list, and it's going to be big, just like the phones.
Okay, because I do have the I have an Xbox S, so I have the controller for that. And
you're good to go.
Yeah, so that's like pretty comfortable. I can play a little bit longer than I would if I'm playing like Diablo 3, especially if I'm trying to record it, because I do record a lot of that. But
you're on the iPad?
For Diablo 3 or what?
No. For the Immortal, you'll be playing on
the Immortal.
iPad?
Yeah, that's where I played the beta for it, or
so it works. The Xbox controller will work, or it already works, so you're good to go.
Oh, cool. Okay, so that's good to know, because I always worry about, like, with games and disability, like, how is this going to work for people like me who have some limitations,
Yeah, controller is a great support. It's awesome.
It is, yeah. I noticed
that's
that when I
gonna
started
be-
playing. Hmm? Go
I would
ahead.
say even beyond abilities, like I know some people like they prefer the larger form factor of a tablet, and long sessions on a tablet, even with just sheer force, it's going to tire your wrists. And I've heard that a good number of times. So certainly adding the Bluetooth controller tied with a tablet makes it a lot more enjoyable, because not everyone wants to stare at a 6-inch screen for, multiple hours a day.
For hours. Yeah, that would be tough. I have a iPad mini, so it's smaller, and I have like a little thing. One of my friends gave me a little stand to put it on, so I could just kind of have it there and not touch it as much. If I would be using a controller, that would make it easier. But it's just the kind of things I think about, because I kind of, in general, with gaming in general, I don't think games are designed with people in the background going, well, what can we do to make this easier for people who have physical disabilities? How are we going to make this make sense for somebody who's got vision impairment? That kind of stuff. I don't think a lot of that is really addressed, or maybe a concern. So it's something I kind of, think about and talk about when I can. We get forgotten about often.
No, it definitely is, and obviously, like, unfortunately, I've worked with people with varying abilities over the years. Unfortunately, that's a population that is often underrepresented, and obviously with game development, they try to do, or any development, they try to hit the mass market, but it's good that, and obviously, because you've been working with them, Dread knows, with how long you've been working with Blizzard under their IPs and whatnot, streaming and conversations. Like, one of the things that they're really, really great about, and I echo as often as possible, that they certainly listen. They can't always implement, and
Right.
obviously, there is some overarching business decisions that will change, but they always try to take into consideration what the populations are asking for, and implement it as well as possible. I know you had some specific questions about remote controllers. I know Echo Hack recently put out a stream addressing some of the big ones, and like Nemo said, all the big titles, they either are supported, or they're going to support it, especially the high end ones. your Xbox, original Xbox controller, you're probably out of luck, but mine wouldn't hold a charge if it tried anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got
but
one of the new ones fairly recently for Diablo 2, because, if I wanted to play Diablo 2 Resurrected or Diablo 2 itself, you can't do it on a Mac. So that's why I got that. Now I have a controller, so, maybe it'll work for Diablo Immortal as well, is what I'm hearing.
I tested it on the Xbox S, the Xbox, and the new, even the Elite Pro controller. I have all three, so all of them work like butter. You're good to go. Yeah,
That's good. Yeah.
It is for sure. Those controllers are awesome. But I play with my hands. But I also have a stand, just like you said. Like, you can elevate the big tablet, and then you don't have to actually hold it. And when I'm streaming or if I'm recording, that's kind of how I play. I just hold my hands. But it is a good point. If you're playing with a tablet, it gets heavy after a while.
Right. And like I said, I have a little one, but part of my neurological disease makes me drop things. So I don't really want to be playing and then drop the tablet or something like that. And
yeah, I hear
there's a
you.
stand
No,
for it, though.
for sure.
Yeah, and it's just kind of the way it is. The one thing I did like in terms of disabilities when I was in the Diablo Immortal, I don't know if it was an alpha or beta now, I can't remember, but if a character talks to you, there's text. So this might work well for people that are hard of hearing or are deaf. They could see what the character is saying.
Yeah, it's both.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it should be both once the game comes out. It was a little buggy, but yeah, it should be both audible and readable, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's something somebody at least thought about for that,
A lot of times I don't play with sound on, so I kind of like this text.
Yeah, it's good. That's how I was, doing the game when I was trying to record it through my tablet and all of that, and not I could hear my voice. I knew it was recording through the software I use, but I wasn't sure at first if I was getting any of the sounds in the game. And then when I played it back, it was there. So that worked out. But yeah, it's just a lot to think about, you know. And I also think about like a lot with like Diablo 3 specifically. There's a lot of points in there where there are like flashing lights that would be really bad for people that can't handle those because of their disabilities, like if they have epilepsy or something like that. And the Belial fight is terrible for that. You know, you get to the end and it's like boom, flashing light all over the screen all of a sudden, and it lasts for a while, but it's not the only spot, you know. So I just kind of have a tendency to think about like how would this affect somebody who can't have that, you know.
I never thought about that either. Huh. Good
Mhm.
point. I'm learning a lot today.
Even the one thing I hope that they can also address when you say flashing lights, I'm just thinking, can we get the screen dimmer to work? At least in the alpha beta, there was no turning that screen. There was a slider that suggested it did, but you could use that thing for a flashlight.
Wow.
Burn your battery down too, just like a flashlight. Good God. My battery. Oof. I have a good battery too, especially if you turn the high FPS and the frame rates up. Man, I mean, it looks really good.
Man, that's like, if you're gonna do that, that's like running like a crypto machine during winter. I mean, you just put it between your hands with gloves, and it's a nice little hand warmer.
Plug it in. Bring a battery bank with you for sure. Yeah. Although, I mean, I ran it on the S21 Ultra, which has a pretty good battery. And I've never seen anything else. I've tried on a lot of stuff, even virtual machines on this. I've never seen something burn down my battery like this. It's like, wow. Every minute, just watch it go down.
It's a AAA game using AAA quantities of battery.
Dude, my drone, which flies, and that takes up like that burns down less battery than Immortal running at full speed.
That's amazing. See, the way I got around that though is my little tablet is plugged into something where it can charge until it gets fully charged. So I was playing it from that, and it never went down because it's not really running the battery; it's pulling through like a stick things, and then that made it easier.
If you plug in current, you'll be good.
Yeah, that's what I do, and it just made it. You know, I wouldn't have to.
Yeah, but I mean,
all of those things.
Come on now, I want to walk around with a car battery. Like, let's roll.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on a couple other things. It looks like the PTR for Diablo 3 Season 26 is kicking off March 10th. They're busy in Diablo.
Wow.
This is also just in Twitter.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that was there. I wasn't looking at Twitter just now, but I'm a little behind. Yeah. I'm a little behind in the season because I.
Yay! Yeah. Being in this community for 10 years, I could do predictions.
Nice work, Jared.
Yep.
Nice work. You can give me lottery numbers?
Oh.
Do those? No, not yet.
Man, you think I'd be living in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, if I could do that?
Hey, man,
he'd be giving them to him before he gets to you.
If you let me know, man. If you know lottery numbers, let me know because I would love to find those out. I actually, unfortunately, got to drop because I got to go to my next meeting. But it was very nice chatting with all of you folks, all of you ladies and gents. Appreciate you. You guys continue the combo, but I'll be back next time.
All right, take it easy, Nemo. Thank you for joining.
See you guys. Adios.
Bye.
Yeah, no, I was going to use this about this time to kind of spin things down because an hour is always a good length of time. You get a lot of good conversation. You know, we can explore a couple different topics. So I'll kind of use this as a opportunity for anyone else that if you've got some last minute thoughts, questions, what ifs, by all means drop it into the text channel. I know just so we can voice it out here. Simon Dune asked a question about basically the PVE builds. If there's anything that had specifically, it was mobility skills. So your transports, your teleports, sprinting and whatnot. And it's one of those I answered briefly. And then again, it's nice, especially with figure this game is going to be a foray for a lot of people into the Diablo IP for the first time. They actually do have some pretty good tools in game. Just to highlight that little side conversation we had about the suggested builds inside the inventory. So Jen, I think you were in the alpha. You didn't see that, but maybe you caught it on streams briefly. They had PvP and PvE builds, suggested build outs right through the inventory, which was definitely useful because you figure some people that's like, oh, I've always heard about this Diablo when I saw, the Diablo 3 and 4 stuff on Twitter, but I've never played it because I don't have a high-end computer or whatever. That was definitely something that was really nice. And then rereading our conversation, Simone, I missed the Crusader horse. That is in there as the Crusader. You actually can get that skill. So there are a couple skills on there that will allow for expedited movement. There was the horse was definitely something, and you had wonderful skills to add on top of that, like the draw and quarter. For the Crusader, the Wizard, if memory serves, I didn't put much time into it, but there was a teleport skill. I'm envisioning, little flashes where you at least advance forward a couple squares each time you hit it. So again, those little last minute kind of conversations. Wad, I know you've been busy, and if you could join in, you by all means, if you have something to add, or Jen, Dredd, if you've got any last minutes, or Jen, even if you want to plug your podcast, because it is a great source of general Diablo information. I know I've jumped in on your Discord channel a little bit just to get some information too, but you've got a really good resource.
Thank you. The show's been around since 2011. I'm one of the original hosts. Everybody else kind of went on their separate ways as time went by, and the website is shatteredsoulstone.com, and there's a Twitter account for that. It's at shatteredstone. I've been trying to be very active on putting news from Diablo stuff, that kind of thing, onto the Twitter, and I do talk. I do highlight the unionization efforts that ABK is doing and some other gaming companies sometimes, and I'll talk about them on the show. If there's news out about Blizzard, Activision, and all the lawsuit shenanigan type things, and I do talk about that on the show as well, but most of it is just, Diablo content and anything I can find from people in the community that made something cool that's Diablo related. And shows come out every Saturday.
Or resharing a link that I found because somebody else made it that was cool with that Deckard Cain rap that I still think is the funniest thing in the world. And I know that made your
that
day.
is. Oh yeah, I was laughing the whole time as soon as I found it was that video that you'd responded with. I'm like, oh wow, that's great, because that's just hysterical.
What was it? For context, everyone else at Diablo did something 2 weeks ago, I think it was, that they just said, say something in the voice of Deckard Cain or something like that. And I just remembered obscurely that there was a Deckard Cain rap, and I threw the first line in, hoping someone would respond with the next line, and I gave them the link to make it easy, but no one actually picked up on it. But that was I love when Diablo does those little things. They've got that sense of humor, even if it is black humor.
Yeah, that is the thing, though, with the Diablo account. I don't know when they started doing this, but at some point, whoever's behind it, maybe it's one person, maybe it's a group of people, they really kind of got the whole, voice of Diablo, in terms of, what screenshots they share from different games, and some of the stuff, talk like Deckard Cain, and they're, playing with emojis and stuff as well. They did, I think, I can't remember, for some holidays, they'll, use an emoji and, tag it to a class or something like that, and they're doing a great job is what I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. Even as going back to, like you said, the ABK news and whatnot, even if the brass above, the decision makers, aren't necessarily at the strongest that they could be or should be, the people that are the feet of the whole program, I love working with them as much as we can, how well they listen to the community, how much they interact with it. Even to the point that, Vicarious Visions, they're my local company. I've known of them for years. I have people that have worked through them, and once I heard that they were formally acquired by ABK or into ABK formally, I was like, oh, that's great for them, because it's really a good company. And again, I've known of them for years, so that's definitely been awesome.
Yeah, it's always good when things like that work out, especially for you that's a local one, so that's more meaningful
Oh, yeah.
probably. Hmm.
We're hoping Blizzard North comes back, especially where we are. Although I know I've heard thrown around Blizzard Albany, but nothing officially. So we shall see on that one. Dread, how about you? Anything last minute to kind of round it out?
Nah, it's just the old phrase we're all hurrying up and waiting for when this game is gonna finally be, the announcement of release, and then when it finally gets released.
Hey, we'll figure all that out, and even then, they will, get it out when they can, which stinks, and it may take a couple. They'll get it out, and then still be a couple weeks before the game actually comes, or however it goes. Everyone else, thank you for popping in. These are always kind of fun to do. It's an informal conversation, obviously. That's always been kind of the goal. I always kind of envision it that it's like I'm kind of the every person. I'm not a content creator. I'm not, anyone special. I haven't been doing this for years on end, but the community's been obviously very welcome, and I want to encourage that discourse, onto the other platforms as well. Obviously you guys can all use the Diablo Campfire text channel to kind of continue any of these types of conversations. If there's anything you find that might be interesting, I always monitor that channel. And we do this at kind of whenever it feels appropriate. The last one was a month ago. We were doing them weekly during the game release, just because it was fun to have a little conversation. When the game actually releases, we may or may not do this. We'll kind of see how it goes, but definitely kind of a deep dive into some of the announcements. And it's a good way to kind of have a community and build it up. And then on that same note, I think everyone is, but just in case, we've obviously been building up the Scrappy Echoes clan, so that when Immortal finally releases, we've got a community of people built around it again for that support, and ultimately hopefully some cross servers. I know we've got communities with Kitten out in Australia. There's a good collection of us in the North American, obviously. And I've seen a couple people even requesting, what about it, in Asia when that releases, or, in Europe? Like, hey, if we can get enough people, we'll certainly entertain that thought. And even if you're not a formal clan, like it's, great to have that community around it, and that's definitely one of the things that has always been true with Immortal, or with Diablo rather, as we get ready for Immortal, and then moving afterwards. So otherwise, if anyone has any thoughts or questions, you can always feel free to ping me. We'll get you kind of set up and helped out with any information that we can. And otherwise, we'll definitely see you guys all around. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thanks again.
Yep. Thanks for inviting
Bye.
me.